welcome everyone to our very first episode of On the Record. My name is Jen Marroquin. I am the Public Information Director at DCR, the Los Angeles Department of Cannabis Regulation, and I'm here with...
Thank you for that introduction. My name is Ryan Solis, and I am the Licensing Director here at DCR. So together on this podcast, we are looking to provide our stakeholders updates on what's going on in the world of cannabis. We're also going to be hoping to inform cannabis leaders on what's going on in the industry. We're going to have different guests on to help get their takes on the cannabis industry. And so really that makes this podcast for anyone who's interested in helping support a safe and prosperous industry here in the city of Los Angeles.
We want to be sure that we are serving as a resource for not only our licensees, but also just, everyone else in our industry. I do want to briefly note that this format is going to replace Jason Colleen's monthly virtual Q&As. He is currently on family leave until May. And on our very first episode, I want to go over very briefly what exactly DCR does. You start.
An intro to DCR.
Yeah.
Sounds good. So DCR, in a nutshell, we process applications for commercial cannabis activity. And once we get those applications in, process them through, we'll make licensing decisions based on that. Kind of have two paths from there. DCR will make decisions on all the activities that are not the Type 10 retail storefront. And then we work alongside the Cannabis Regulation Commission and make recommendations to them regarding the retail storefront activity. Once you get your license, we have a compliance and enforcement division that helps make sure that operators are in compliance with all of the laws and regulations throughout the city, whether it's DCR, public safety, public health, anything like that. And they also help regulate the operations of our licensed commercial cannabis activity. They visit the businesses, and if there are any complaints that are made regarding potential illegal activity, they will investigate those.
Yeah. Good thing that you mentioned illegal activity, because I was going to ask, is our compliance division in charge of that as well?
They're not in charge of it, no. So they touch a little part of it, but they are not in charge of it. The Los Angeles Police Department is ultimately the one that's responsible for enforcing against any illegal activity in the city for commercial cannabis.
Yeah.
We don't have a police force. They do, obviously. So when we get a complaint that comes in, the compliance team will look at it. They will see, we'll do some research here at DCR to see if there is a licensed operator at that location. If it's determined that there is not, then we'll go ahead and forward that along to LAPD, and they will take it from there.
Yeah. So you mentioned licensing and you mentioned compliance. There is one more that is central to our core functions here at DCR.
How could I forget? Thank you for reminding me. Yes, that's our social equity program. This was created by the city of Los Angeles to help deal with a whole community of individuals that were negatively impacted by the past regulations on cannabis. So the SEP program helps to promote equitable ownership and employment opportunities to those individuals. We refer to them as social equity individual applicants, and those are typically related to folks that have had a prior cannabis arrest or conviction, lived in disproportionately impacted areas, and also met certain low-income thresholds.
Yeah. And there are various resources available specifically to our social equity applicants.
Yeah, various is probably putting it lightly. There's a whole lot. They can get different things such as one-on-one coaching, set up appointments with that. They can get legal assistance through free and low-cost legal services, which is great. And there's also a whole album of online learning material for folks that are starting up a business and kind of teach them about some of the challenges and things to know as they start that process. I could probably spend, the whole rest of this podcast talking about the stuff that the benefits that our social equity individual applicants can get through our social equity program, but I'll stop myself there. Maybe we'll spend another podcast digging deeper into that.
So if you want to learn more about the social equity program, you can visit our website, access.cannabis.lacity.gov.
Yes, thank you very much for plugging the website. I forgot about that. But I think other than that, I think we've talked enough. Let's invite in our inaugural On the Record guest.
Yes, our first guest, she is the executive director for the department that regulates the largest municipal cannabis market in the country. By our estimates, nearly a $2 billion industry. She is an Angelino. She grew up in the Valley. And for many people, she is the first person they call when they have, an issue with the industry, with their license. Let's welcome Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
Hey.
Hi. What's happening, guys?
What's going on? How are you?
Happy to be alive and happy to be doing this podcast. It's really lovely to meet both of you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Just kidding. I know them.
Well, we definitely have a lot to talk about. We're definitely happy you're here.
Indeed.
There's a lot going on in the world of cannabis.
Indeed.
So, the first thing we wanted to talk about is the recent executive order from the federal government to reclassify cannabis. So, would you mind giving us some background on that?
Sure. So as folks probably remember, right before the new year, there was an executive order that was signed directing federal agencies to reclassify cannabis from a Schedule 1 to a Schedule 3 drug. Just as some context, Schedule 1 represents drugs like LSD, heroin, ecstasy. These substances are deemed as generally having a lot of high abuse potential with very limited medicinal use. And Schedule 3 is like anabolic steroids, Tylenol with codeine. So, moderate to low potential for physical and psychological dependence.
And many people were wondering, what does this mean for us now? Does this mean that cannabis is legal federally?
I think that's a really good question. I think while that's really big news, we need to kind of pump the brakes a little bit. If and when cannabis is rescheduled from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3, cannabis won't suddenly become legal and it won't bring cannabis operators into compliance with federal law. What it may do is formally acknowledge the medicinal benefits of cannabis and deem it kind of less dangerous than other drugs in its class. For businesses, there may be a potential for taking advantage of the 280E tax benefits and access to banking support, which God knows they need. For medical research, it allows folks less restrictions. Consumers, easier access to medical marijuana. And then most importantly, and I think it's important for our department in the city of Los Angeles, is less severe criminal penalties and also looking at addressing the past harms from the war on drugs. Rescheduling opens up the door for significant advancements in this industry. But, there's still much more to do. And I think the first steps are going to lie with these federal agencies and what happens. Members of Congress, either during this process, they really need to pursue legalization for there to be interstate commerce and for, legal businesses to compete with the illicit market.
That's an important note. There's got to be a legislative path
Yeah, absolutely.
first.
Yeah, executive order is just one step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's a lot of great information. Appreciate you providing all that background. Some stuff maybe to follow up on at a later date, and we can kind of touch base on.
This is
Yes.
this is going to be an ongoing thing, so definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of going from the federal side to now more state in California, we wanted to talk about the ban on hemp products that went live on January 1st of 2026. Can you help kind of clarify for everyone what that all entails?
Yeah, sure. I will say back in early 2025, Governor Newsom issued essentially an executive order banning all hemp-derived cannabis products from being sold on shelves until they figured out a legislative solution to move forward. And that legislative solution happened on October 2nd, 2025. He signed into law AB 8. And essentially, this legislation integrates hemp-derived products containing any intoxicating cannabinoids into the licensed cannabis market, and it sets restrictions on the incorporation of industrial hemp raw extract into these products. The majority of this bill is going to take place on January 1st, 2028, so the market has some time to adjust. However, the key provisions that started this year, unless industrial hemp raw extract has a purity level greater than 99% and does not contain THC or synthetic cannabinoids, it cannot be incorporated into food products, food additives, dietary supplements, meaning retailers should not keep any of these products on their shelves at all. A note to our licensed retailers, no hemp-derived cannabis products on your shelf.
So as we speak, if they have hemp on their shelves,
get rid of it.
No.
Yeah, it's against the law.
Thank you, Michelle.
But there's plenty of other products that will provide a nice buzz that you can have on your shelves. And I encourage anybody who's listening to this as a consumer to visit a licensed cannabis retail shop There's a variety of ways to consume cannabis, and drinking it is one of them. And it's quite enjoyable.
That's a great transition, Michelle, because I
Indeed.
want to ask you about some of the cannabis trends that you're seeing out in the industry in the state and in LA.
Yeah.
What are we seeing?
Sure. As a disclaimer, I'm not a market economist, but we're able to kind of discern market trends from what we're seeing happening through our licensed market, and through taxes. So we are seeing a overall decline in sales, and there are a few reasons for that. But I think also, cannabis is having a moment, specifically as it relates to the decline of alcohol consumption. And leave it to the brilliant folks in our cannabis industry to really capitalize on marketing around that with Dry January and folks uh, wanting to be sober curious.
California sober.
California's sober. Yep. And I think our industry, specifically in LA, is really kind of like tapping into that marketing potential. Some other consumer trends that we are seeing is flower continues to drop in popularity, but it still accounts for, I'd say, the second half of major sales in California. But for many years in a row, vape is number one product and is the preferred methodology for consumption. Also, consumers are increasingly opting in for a pre-roll. They love a pre-roll, and also edibles and tinctures and concentrates remain pretty steady at around, 11 to 8% of sales. The way people get their cannabis is changing. Folks really prefer delivery as opposed to walking into a shop. They want pre-order options. They want to easily reorder, and they want it to be delivered to their door. We see women are consuming more than men, and we see the preferred consumption methodology for women is edibles, tinctures, beverages, a very discreet way to just chill and relax. So those are kind of the market trends I'm seeing locally.
Yeah. But, and you did mention there are some challenges in our industry, but our industry is, full of people who are strong and who, remain,
Yeah.
working.
I mean, I've never met entrepreneurs that are more resilient, more strong, more adaptable than the folks in the cannabis industry. I mean, constantly having to deal with the contraction and expansion of this market, different type of products, how to market different types of products. So, I mean, again, this industry is very resilient. And the way they continue to, excel is it constantly is a pleasure to watch.
And as we move through legalization, not only federally, but in other states, we're also going to see a continued changing market.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, it's important to note that California is like the home of cannabis in the United States. I mean, and this is what's so exciting about the federal government making any overture towards the path to legalization, because one of our strongest characteristics is going to be our ability to export. And so, again, the executive order, it's a step in the right direction. But legalization is really going to take us over the finish line. And I'm really excited for what that means for the California cannabis industry. And obviously our local market, which I adore.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah,
all
thanks
that
for
great
having me.
information. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule for us and the viewers here. We appreciate it.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you guys doing this. I think it's important for folks to tune in as much as possible, because there's going to be a lot of great information that's shared in this podcast about the DCR, about, market trends, about what's happening federally, what's happening up at the state level. So please tune in.
We want to be sure that this is the way that we can speak directly to our industry.
Absolutely.
About everything in the cannabis world.
Yeah, totally. And if anybody has any thoughts, questions, send them our way. Let's tackle it together.
All right. Thank you so much for being here, Michelle.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you guys now. Get back to work.
All right. That was some very helpful information. Before we sign off, we want to leave our viewers with some reminders. Ryan, do you want to go?
Yes, some very important reminders. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but want to talk about the 2027 renewal cycle. There's some new requirements that are going to be required to renew into 2027. That's why I wanted to bring it up. Um, there's related to your public health permit
Yeah.
and also your clearance, your city clearances that are through the Los Angeles Department of Building and Safety. So please begin working on that. There was a form that we included. It was an attestation for your public health building and operating permits as part of the 2026 renewal cycle. So please take a look and revisit that for what's going to be required in 2026.
Mhm. That's a good note, because it's important to know that our applicants are going to need the public health permit by the end of the 2027 renewal period so that they can renew. And to add to that, it's important to know that these permits are on a first come, first served basis. So if everybody is waiting toward the end to fill out these documentation, then it may take longer. So start looking into this now.
Now, yes. Thank you very much for adding that. And yeah, it's not as simple as, most of our stuff is just fill out a document, make sure you get the proper signatures. It can be done fairly quickly, but this is not going to be a couple days or even
A
a
long
couple
process.
weeks. It's going to be a long
Yeah.
process. So yeah, the more, like you said, the more people we can get proactively in advance, I think better for everyone.
Yeah.
And then my last reminder, if I could sneak one more in, is related to the annual compliance inspection fees. We started sending out some communications about this in January for our licensed businesses that did renew into 2026 and have the authority to operate. We typically refer to that as temporary approval. All those businesses will need to be inspected by our compliance and enforcement division. So we send out communications about that in January. We send out invoices for the fees related to that in February. Those fees will be due sometime in March. And so please, if you haven't looked at that, take a look now and get yourself ready for when our compliance and enforcement division folks come out and help ensure that you're following all the rules and regulations of the city.
Yeah. All right. I think that's a wrap for us. Lastly, don't forget to submit any questions or any topic suggestions that you would like us to cover in the next episode. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for watching. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.